I know we've heard a lot, but I want to touch on what this bad-built bill for billionaires doesn't do, because it barely touches housing, a crisis that is affecting more than just the people in my district. My disappointment is with what is not in here. So once again, like I did in the Ways and Means Committee, I am here to let you and the American people know that there's nothing to address the fact that rent increases are outpacing people's income, that there's nothing in this bill that builds out housing for the middle class, that there's nothing in this bill that touches Trump's blanket tariffs, which are taxes that Americans pay, not some foreign governments, that will raise the cost of housing. In fact, in 2018, the CBO projected that the initial Trump tax cuts would reduce residential investment since their provisions are not favorable towards housing. That report proved true, as inflation-adjusted residential investment today is nowhere close to its pre-2018 trend. I'll also tell you what this bill does have. It has an annual tax cut for billionaires, over $255,000 a year, while the average benefit for working people earning less than $50,000 annually is a meager $265. The cutting of health care for 14 million Americans, and the selling of Nevada public lands without a single dollar going to the state for which those lands are intended. So let's recap. Trump is making borrowing more expensive. He's raising the cost of housing materials due to tariffs, and extending the GOP tax scam means continued reductions in residential investment and making Nevadans pay for it with our land. Please make it make sense. That's why I am offering a package of amendments to help our veterans, to address tipped workers, small businesses, and the hospitality sector, which has been hit hard by President Trump's tariffs. However, for the purposes of this hearing, I will focus my remarks around helping our veterans. My amendment seeks to address the housing crisis that my colleagues seem to be ignoring. This amendment would create a Veterans Housing Fund through a 1% surtax on excessive corporate stock buybacks, limited to firms with over $10 billion in assets. We are asking that the largest companies, who recorded nearly $1 trillion in buybacks, pay 1%. Over 30,000 veterans are experiencing homelessness. If my colleagues are committed to helping veterans, then you can support this amendment to help balance that equation. This is not a blue city amendment. According to HUD's 2024 Annual Homelessness Assessment Report, nearly half of veterans experiencing homelessness are in suburban or rural communities. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle in this committee represent 8 states that total around 6,000 veterans who are experiencing homelessness. Georgia, nearly 650. Virginia, around 400. New York, almost 1,200. Indiana, over 400. Texas, nearly 1,850. South Carolina, almost 400. Minnesota, 300. And North Carolina, nearly 700 veterans experiencing homelessness. There is nothing in this bill that addresses shelter, mental health, substance abuse, job training, and other assistance specifically for our veterans. So I'm urging my Republican colleagues to work with us now to fix this bill before it goes to the floor. We want to work with you to address the problems facing our constituents. Earlier this month, I introduced 3 bills that can help address the housing crisis. We need legislation that addresses the corporate takeover of single-family homes, like my HOME Act. Not one Republican joined when I brought that bill forward. I introduced my Unlock Housing Act to address affordable housing by allowing the Bureau of Land Management to be able to lease the land to local governments and tribes specifically for affordable housing. This is a smart method to use the laws that already exist to build out more housing. Why? Because as Nevadans know, the land that we sell has not helped create the housing that we need. But we are seeing the same story over and over, that this bill does not have working people in mind. Instead, we have people like Representative Mark Amodei pushing to sell off more than 500,000 acres of land in Nevada under the guise of creating more affordable housing. He didn't even give a second thought to selling out our community. And for what? To use Nevada as a cash grab for the nation's debt? Don't believe me? Look at Section 8315 of the bill. If my colleagues are truly serious about addressing the struggles of the middle class and specifically housing affordability, then please support my amendments. I'm also putting on the record that I've sent a letter to Chairman Smith and to Speaker Johnson to bring up my TIPS Act to ensure that tip workers receive the benefits that they are entitled. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I want to ask just a few questions of Mr. Horsford and Mr. Gomez as the two members who serve on Ways and Means. Mr. Horsford, you heard me earlier, if you might, maybe at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, I don't remember exactly when, in my exchange with the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee regarding the tax on tips. And I'm still trying to understand why the Republicans on the committee don't just put your bill on the floor, given that there's bipartisan support for it, given that this seems to be an issue that they're passionate about. I struggle to understand why that's not the case. And I know you have fought vigorously on behalf of the people that you represent in Nevada for that particular policy, but I want to give you an opportunity to expound upon it if you're interested.
Thank you to the Assistant Democratic Leader. Look, to be clear, I've been working with a coalition of workers, the culinary workers, Unite Here, One Fair Wage, and others to bring legislation to provide relief to tip workers. 6 million tip workers in America today make as little as $2.13 an hour. $2.13. 70% of those workers are women, and women of color in particular. So on top of giving relief and allowing more tip workers to keep their hard-earned money by eliminating the tax on tips, we also need to give workers a raise. And that is what my bill does. No other bill does that. My bill also has important safeguards so that people continue to pay into Social Security, so that hedge funds are not able to grift off of the policy, so that we define what a tip worker is, so that it's not abused under our tax law. And so for Chairman Smith to sit here today and say, you know, he couldn't bring a bill to the committee is just wrong, because I'm ready. I've been ready, and my bill has been ready since the beginning of this Congress. And it comes from the actual tip workers who are affected by the policy. I am a co-sponsor of the bill that was unanimously passed by the Senate, the same version. And I see no reason why the House cannot bring up a standalone bill to make sure that we are advocating for the needs of tip workers and all workers. You're going to have all these compounding effects of cutting health care, of cutting nutrition programs, of making it harder for working families to get by. Then let's give workers a raise. Let's give them a raise that's livable enough to actually pay the rent on and to afford to buy a home. That is what Democrats stand for. That's what we're fighting for, is to give everyone an opportunity to not just survive, but to actually thrive in America. So thank you to the Assistant Leader for the opportunity to talk about that legislation. And Chairman Smith, wherever you are, my letter to you asking for a standalone vote on my legislation is at your office.
Well said. Well said.